I think it's better. Então, bom dia a todos e muito obrigado pela vossa presença. Hoje vamos falar de mídia digital e de dados e de privacidade, tudo temas que estão intrinsecamente ligados e que têm hoje um impacto bastante importante na atividade das empresas, porque também e principalmente tem impacto e afeta a confiança das pessoas nas marcas. Atualmente, para as marcas se conectarem com os consumidores online ou para acompanharem a jornada do seu cliente ou para analisarem o comportamento das pessoas face a uma campanha de comunicação, utilizam dados. E o acesso a esses dados é diverso, mas a verdade é que a responsabilidade pela sua utilização é sempre das marcas. E essa utilização de dados é já bastante regulamentada, como iremos ver na intervenção de hoje, e com regulamentação até bastante específica, que as organizações têm não só que conhecer, mas acima de tudo, cumprir sobre pena de multas bastante avultadas. E claro está, adicionalmente, hipotecarem a confiança dos seus clientes. E por tudo isto, este é um tema incontornável que nós APAN não poderíamos deixar de endereçar e endereçar especialmente com quem sabe muito sobre esta matéria. E com isso passo a apresentar o Magid Souhami, a quem desde já agradeço a sua disponibilidade por estar aqui conosco, inclusivamente interrompendo férias, mas é com muito interesse e com muito gosto que temos o Magid conosco. O Magid tem o Magid é presidente das operações internacionais da Global Data Bank. Tem uma vasta experiência em grandes empresas internacionais. Nos últimos 15 anos trabalhou para a Procter & Gamble e para a General Mills, em diversos mercados, quer em mercados em rápido crescimento, quer em mercados desenvolvidos, como no caso dos Estados Unidos da América, Suíça, Brasil e Panamá. Liderou essas organizações com responsabilidades nas áreas de brand building e exatamente por trabalhar nessas áreas, os temas de data, da mídia, da produção publicitária, das agências criativas, do e-commerce, não são estranhos, porque são tudo temas que nas marcas, que no serviço corporativo das marcas são abordados. A crescente paixão do Magid pela indústria dos dados e da mídia levou à sua atual posição de liderança, como eu disse há pouco, como presidente de operações internacionais da Global Data Bank, que é uma empresa de privacidade digital e que o Magid terá a oportunidade de apresentar em mais detalhe. A Global Data Bank é um parceiro estratégico da WFA para a área da segurança dos dados, e isso diz muito sobre não só o conhecimento, mas a especialização desta organização nesta matéria. O Magid tem uma formação bastante ampla, ampla e diversificada, porque é engenheiro, tem um MBA da Escola Superior École Supérieure de Commerce de Paris e também tem completou um programa de mídia e artes na Universidade de Nova Iorque. Mora no Panamá e fala francês, inglês, português, curiosamente. Portanto, quem quiser colocar questões no final ao Magid em português, poderá fazê-lo, mas obviamente ele sente-se mais confortável para fazer esta intervenção em inglês, mas também sabe um pouco de espanhol e de árabe. Portanto, estamos perante alguém que, para além de saber muito sobre o tema que nos vai falar, tem esta amplitude de conhecimento e de experiência que nos pode ajudar a entender melhor o tema que trazemos hoje aqui. And with that, I'll give you the word, Magid, thanking you again for being with us.
Thank you, Manuela. Muito obrigado e muito obrigado pelo convite. Não vou fazer a apresentação em português porque agora meu português é um pouco
Simples.
Isso. E com um sotaque brasileiro. Então, switching in English, I'm really excited to have this opportunity to cover a topic that I have a lot of passion for, and with a market with the Portuguese members that I also have a lot of love for. So absolutely pleased to join the session today. I'm going to put up my screen and tell you briefly about my own interest for the topic, where it comes from, and switch then very quickly to what matters the most for the members in Portugal. So my background is really on the brand side. For the past years, as Manuela was kindly sharing in my intro, I worked on different organizations for large multinational and always on the consumer facing interface. So I will give you today not a presentation from only the market standpoint and the market expertise standpoint, but I will also refer to some of my experiences back on the brand side, so you can make best use of everything I'm going to share today as brand leaders. One of my deep beliefs, because of my experience mostly with Procter & Gamble and then with General Mills, is a focus on consumer first marketing and brand building. And the topic of data now is in my DNA, is in the core capabilities of what Global Data Bank do, but I still live day in, day out with this consumer-centric mindset. So when you think about all the efforts that as brand leaders you're undertaking day in, day out, whether you are in the telco industry, in the insurance, banking, FMCG, CPG industries, and on and on and on, you're investing a lot basically to build your brand, to build your brand reputation, and to reach consumers. And one of the things that I want to share as a disclaimer before we go further in the topic of data and data safety is it's very hard today in the state of the world as it is not to breach data privacy regulation. I'm insisting on a very important number that we measured after a worldwide analysis conducted in partnership with the World Federation of Advertisers that led us to a striking number, figuring out that 90% of all the data on internet today used for targeting consumer is non-compliant. I will go later on into peeling the onion and really explaining why is that, what it means for brands, and what you should all be considering doing as you want to continue engaging with your consumer and use data in order to do that in the most efficient way for your brand and your businesses. So in a nutshell, Global Data Bank is a privacy tech. I insist also on the positioning of the company because it helps understand what we do today and how we gathered all that experience regarding data safety. From the ignition of the business, we've always been focusing on being a privacy technology, which means that we were making huge efforts to combine two things that are antagonists most part of the time, because most of the tech industry goes against privacy. They're about harvesting data and monetizing data. Global Data Bank never took that stance. So basically from our creation 12 years ago to today, we never entered the business of selling data, reselling data, collecting data without appropriate consent, and so on and so forth. Instead, what we've been focusing on is creating collection, management, and activation solution, thinking about what brands do best, basically, connect with consumer, and how we in the tech industry could help this mechanism to happen while protecting the data privacy of consumers. So that led us 3 years ago to form that strategic partnership, as Manuela was sharing, with the World Federation of Advertisers. What we're doing there basically is to extend our capability as strategic member, producing benchmark research and focus group and webinars for the WFM members. And I'm always thrilled to engage with the local association, like today with the Portuguese Association. For perspective as well and background, our past 12 years in the digital media industry have been across all verticals. So we're working with 20 plus industries, 650 more clients, mid-sized businesses to large-scale companies, and across all their agencies. So there are always a question that comes in our business model. We work direct with brands and or their media agency, because media agency also have a critical role to play in the topic of data safety. Now, going into the topic itself of data safety, I'm sure most of the APAN members feel overwhelmed, just like the WFM members do, around the topic of privacy, e-privacy or data privacy. And why is that the case? It's overall a very complex topic to address. So what I'm going to do today is to break it down in simple elements. We are going to cover a lot of information. So I invite everyone just to take a sneak peek with me in all the complexity of the topic. I will simplify it, breaking down in the key elements. And then if there are follow-up questions, I'm happy to take them after the session. The second reason why it's a complex topic to address, there is a lack of clarity. So basically, the entire industry is not always very transparent about what is happening, what is feasible, and what is not. So today, I will also try to drive transparency, maybe in a very direct manner, but I will put myself in your shoes as brand leader, as marketer, and try to bring you clarity on certain topics that deserves it. And then the last piece is the lack of internal awareness or prioritization. The topic of data safety, to be addressed correctly, needs to be prioritized. In order to be prioritized within organizations where marketers and brand building people are already busy with a lot of other topics, you need to understand the fundamentals. You need to be able to grasp the risk and also the opportunity of managing data right in order to put that on the corporate agenda of your companies. So one key element of the story that I want to share with you today is basically putting back myself in my role as a brand leader a couple of years ago, where consumers are interacting with the brand, specifically on the media side, is on screens. And now it goes across multiple screens. So when you think about building your marketing plans or your media and comms plans, where you want to interact or to convey the messages of your brand to your consumer is on those screens. How you find those consumers is using data. So I'm sharing that also as background because basically the common perception is data is risky or data is bad. That's not my belief. data is an asset that, if used correctly, can help brand building people and marketing people to do what consumer want to do, which is receive relevant message, content, or promotions. So let's start with putting that as an important fact for the conversation that is to come. Once we've said that, basically, I want to cover the topic with few things. For me, success is at the end of the session, if I'm able to share something new with you, sharing actionable things, actionable insight, or helping you with some resources, that will be my mission accomplished for today. So what I'm going to cover is first, which problems brands and advertisers have to solve for. Then I will take a step back into what are the solutions and alternatives, because a lot of people in the industry today are talking about the problems, not enough about the solution. So that's what I want to do today. Last but not least, I want to keep time to tell you how to get started. So it will be a very pragmatic session. I'm not here to give you theoretical concept about GDPR and privacy and so on. We can do that in another forum of discussion. Today is really about helping you grasp what can be done and how to get started. The first thing is on the why. Why all of you should care about that topic sooner than later. And the simple answer is you've all received by now messages, sometimes conflicting messages, about the world of harvesting data and using data becoming more and more complex, potentially third-party cookies sunsetting, Google, Apple, and other vendors starting to raise their standards in terms of data privacy, which limits and hinders the ability of marketers and brands to then use data to consume to connect with their consumer. So in that complex ecosystem and environment, few things to take away. Simplifying the issue, pay attention to everything that is moving, and the landscape will continue evolving as we speak and for the next 2 to 3 years with an accelerated and exponential speed. Now, if you want to boil it down to a simple fact, all those transformations are at the end of the day good for brands and marketers because they give back power to consumer. And they give back the power to consumer to what we often refer to in a more legal verbiage as to opt in or opt out. So giving the real choice to consumer as to what brands can do and should do or not, most importantly, not with their data. Once we put that simple statement, I also want to give you the real picture. The problem is a vast issue. So in order to tackle it correctly, what is important is to really look at it holistically. And when you start doing that, I'm offering you here a framework. Feel free to use it. It's our methodology at Global Data Bank. I'm always open to feedback and question on that, but it helped us over the past 12 years, help hundreds of brands. So it's not me saying it's, believe it, it works. It's a proven methodology that have been tested by hundreds of brands and advertisers. What we are advising them to do is to look at the topic of data safety and privacy along the lines of 5 pillars. I will go in each of them and help you understand where to start on each of those topics. But if you look at it in the 5 areas of priorities, one is really the topic of consent. Is having a clear understanding and alignment within your brand or within your company about consent, getting consent from consumers, what it means in your market in Portugal, what it means in the eyes of the regulators in the Portuguese market, and what it means for the Portuguese consumers. One element is technically the CMP, the content management platform. And basically that helps you articulate and turn the content given by the user into what you're going to do later on with their data. The third-party cookie that a lot of the industry is talking about is actually a tiny piece of the equation. It's an important one, but it is just one element, because third-party cookies are just a mechanism. They are just a piece of code of JavaScript that on its own is harmless. It's how those third-party cookies are used, when are they placed, when are they fired, and is that done with or without the consent of the consumer? That is the real issue that needs to be discussed. And the third pillar that you see in the middle is first-party data. The first-party data is basically what gets produced when you as brand and marketer harvest data from your website or from your apps using third-party cookies or other mechanisms. So a real element of the conversation is also how sufficient and how prepared is the Portuguese market with first-party data in order to go through and navigate all the transformation that is underway with the third-party cookie sunset and so on and so forth. Fourth, that is connected to the three first pillar that I mentioned, the walled gardens. So when you look at your first-party data sufficiency, when you take into consideration the third-party cookie sunset, when you add on the layer of once you put the right level of consent management, you're going to see a dramatic drop of data sufficiency. The next question is, where am I going to find data to still reach my consumers? How many of my consumers are actually authorizing walled gardens like Facebook and Instagram or Tencent, Baidu, Amazon in the rest of the world to harvest data? So this element also needs to be thought through by marketers, by brand leaders, in conjunctions with all the other work streams that I just mentioned before. Last but not least, for marketers specifically, because if you don't think about that, it's likely no one else in the company is going to think about it, is the topic of measurement. So when today the entire industry speaks about the third-party cookie sunset and the walled garden and so on, they think about it more from a regulatory standpoint, what the law, what the regulator is asking brand to do or asking brand not to do. There is a major implication on how things are measured today, from your marketing modeling mix to your media plans, sufficiency, integrated screen planning strategy, how you measure reach and frequencies across screens. And if that topic is not pushed on the agenda of data safety and privacy by the marketers, no one else is going to think about it. So I just invite you, I plant the seed here, unified measurement. What are all the things that are moving in the topic of data privacy, how they're going to impact what you measure, what is core to the marketing function, to the brand building function, what are those KPIs, and how will you be able to measure them going forward? So here I just put a very wide view of the work. I know it sounds like a daunting task. Now, the challenge and the risk is also at the same size of the task itself, because if you think about the negative side of the story, which I don't like to insist on, but is here, so it needs to be acknowledged, there are a lot of companies that already got GDPR related fines. Now, in the GDPR region in Europe, Portugal is part of Europe, of the Eurozone, you see the exponential rate of those fines. So when the GDPR regulation got enacted back in 2018, it was just symbolic fines that were given. And to any type of advertiser, whether you're a post office, a school, a hospital, or a large-scale company, that was the case. then those fines became more and more important from an absolute number. To date, actually, this chart continues from June 2020 to date. We're already reaching above €1 billion of aggregated fine. So think about it just along the lines of financial implication for your business, reputational implication for your brand, and third is the collateral impact, the loss of trust from your consumers. So once you start thinking about it along those lines, you're able then to articulate a plan internally. Why is this topic important? Why should we mobilize resources internally within my brand, within my company, to have a work stream organized around data privacy and data safety? So the three issue that this work stream would need to look at, if you want to start about it in a very pragmatic manner and simplifying the issue, because people inside brand and companies really need to have a clear action plan to go after it. It's three key topics that really needs to be addressed. The first one in priority is the broken third-party cookies. So the third-party cookies, when you think about the GDPR regulation, the data privacy issues that happened in the past year and a half to 2 years, they're really related to two main mechanisms. One is the collect of data using third-party cookies without consent from the people, from the consumer. The second main problem is related to the media activation. So I will go into how this data is used in the real-time bidding and programmatic media landscape today. I know programmatic is not that big in terms of share of digital spending in Portugal, but that's something for the market to be anticipating, learning from the mistake from the rest of Europe, potentially, and not doing them. The third one is overall the broken data industry. So what is happening, what you should be knowing as marketers and brand builders, and how to address those. The first one, the famous topic of cookie. All marketers, I've heard that 1,000 times, say we need cookies. Fair. I've been on marketing side. Cookies are a very important tool. They help you measure audience, site performance, return frequency, do targeting, retargeting. I'm with you. Now, few cookies. Remembering what a cookie is. A cookie is a very fancy name or glamorous name invented by the industry. A cookie is actually a tracker. Okay, so let's call a cat, as we say in French. A tracker harvesting information from people visiting your brand website or the publisher website. And this information called data is then used by the brand building or marketing industry. Okay, so when you look at it this way, the cookie looks good. Everybody loves to eat cookies. Then you turn that into, okay, now it's different. It's something that is a bit more concerning. Maybe we need to be careful with what we're doing here. With this acknowledgement of what a cookie is, which is a tracker, comes with the accountability. That's how I feel when I look at this screen. Then I start feeling accountable and responsible as a marketing person as to what is this tracker doing? How would I like this tracker to collect information about me or not as a consumer, as a person? And then you start thinking of the magnitude of the issue, because as a marketer, really to do your job, you would need 12 trackers, 12 to 15 in the Eurozone. And yet there are 81,000 trackers that are being used today on the open web. So from 12 to 15 to 81, it begs the question, why? What are those trackers doing? Who is benefiting from having all those trackers? How are they regulated? So we all need to also acknowledge the fact that the industry has gone way too far, and to a certain extent, things got out of hand. And all the discussion and all the pressure that we're feeling today from the regulators, from certain watchdog organizations, from certain consumer group is a healthy one. It's just a healthy rebalance of the industry, of how we do things and how we serve our consumer with good marketing and good brand building activities. But one key fact for everyone to know, based on our study and research, today there is 8 out of 10 brands that may breach data privacy regulation. GDPR as an example, but there are 120 plus data privacy regulation that our intelligence group is scrutinizing on an ongoing basis. 8 out of 10. It's a chance that I would not feel comfortable with taking if I was still on my brand leader role. Now, when I was on this position, and certainly you are in the same shoes, I was not aware that the issue was so big. And you know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. Once you know, you have a responsibility to take action. Now, why is this number so big? Basically, is because we realize that many brands think that they have their consent management platform implemented correctly, and therefore they are respecting the opt-in and opt-out choices from the user. So some of them do have a CMP in place. The sequence should be you collect, you have the CMP in place, then you get the authorization or the consent, and then if you get consent, you start using the data. Now, what we realize is it's not the case. 8 out of 10 brands is actually using the data immediately without basically getting the consumer consent. So how to solve that is a simple tweak, but you need to acknowledge the issue to be able to solve it. If you're, for example, operating in the alcohol, beverage industry or food industry, certain industries with age restrictions, you need first to have this age wall on your website. Then if the age wall requirements are met, you fire your consent management platform, this cookie banner that we see at the bottom of the screen that asks people to opt in and opt out. And if there is opt-in, if and only if there is opt-in, then you can start using your third-party cookies and tracker to collect, use, and pass data if appropriate. How we suggest to do that is just a representation of one of our tools that is called the Data Safety Index that you see on the screen. We analyze, for lack of better words, it's a transparency audit of the third-party cookie ecosystem on the brand website and on the publisher website. So what you see on the screen is a best case scenario. You start reading from left to right. You have the brand website. Then the node that you see after that is the CMP, the consent management platform. If the opt-in has been given in the CMP to the cookie banner, then you can fire a certain set of third-party cookies and trackers. That's absolutely okay to do things if they're done this way. So if you think about that's just a random example. But if you think about the sequence of events, when you go on this website, you see at the bottom left of the screen, their cookie banner that mentions to the person visiting the brand site that there is cookies that are going to be activated. Here, this is what we call the CMP in technical terms. Now, the issue that is happening oftentimes is, for today's session, this site has been anonymized. There are many examples from the Portuguese market that look just like that. So this is what is actually happening backstage, even before the cookie banner appeared on the screen. So I'm going to take 2 steps back. When you go on this website, before you took any action here, before I click OK, those are all the 133 trackers that have started collecting information about me, about my browsing history, about my IP, about my geolocalization, about many information. You see all of them being fired here. And then you see them connecting to other trackers. And the challenge is it's a snowball effect. Once you don't have things under control on your brand website, some trackers get activated and they call other trackers. And you may end up as a brand passing data from consumers that did not give consent for this data to be used. And this data end up in places where it's potentially sold and resold, making the issue even bigger. All the liability for that happening is more and more flipping towards the brand. The reason why I'm insisting on that is there is, over the past 2 years, a battle of responsibilities and accountabilities, brands pushing accountability sometimes to their agency pushing the issue to the publisher pushing to the ad tech. The reality is, from the 1 billion euro plus of fine in GDPR, most of them were given to brands, not yet to publisher. Maybe it's coming, but not yet, not to agencies, and not to ad tech. So again, a call to action. Think about it in terms of brand accountability, and think about it for your consumer, but think about it also in terms of magnitude of risk for you as marketer and for your brands. So real use case from the Portuguese market. This one is anonymized as well. You see in this example that we ran a couple of months ago, there is not even a CMP. So there is 2 issues to be detached. Some websites did not go through the first step of implementing a content management platform because they feel maybe the market, the regulator in the country is not pushing yet, or the consumers are not aware yet about the issue around consent. The second issue is some brands, some websites did implement a CMP, but this CMP is not operating properly. That's the previous example which we just saw. So those are the 2 main issues that I would invite you to consider today, basically, for your brand, for your company. Do you feel that you're ready in terms of content management platform implementation? Yes, no. Are they implemented? Yes, no. And then the second question is, if they're implemented, how do you check that they're actually operating correctly? The issue then leads me to another very important topic. Now, this is the opportunity. Once you clean the house from a consent standpoint, from how you're actually comfortable that you're asking the consent of consumer and then complying with this consent, you can move to the second part of the equation, which is really the role of the marketers, which is think about data, your first-party data strategy. How rich is it? How robust is it? How sufficient it is for the target group that you're reaching in order to grow your business? The second question is regarding second-party data. So the data that is bought by you as marketers from publishers and data partner. I separate those 2 topics because first-party data needs a specific plan. It's the data you harvest from your brand website. The second-party data is the one you acquire from other websites, like the publisher website where you place your media, or certain data vendors. And then third-party data, I always put it there. I always share an analogy. Third-party data for me has never been a reliable source of data. So third-party data is at best 10x extrapolated. It's data that has been manipulated, that has been extrapolated in order to be sold to the market, highly inaccurate, does not reflect through audiences and comes with a huge risk from a compliance and data privacy standpoint. So my 2 cents on third-party data, consider dropping it. If you're still using it today, consider dropping it immediately. It's not worth taking the risk. Focus on your first-party data strategy and start having robust discussion with your publisher and data vendors around second-party data. Getting in a pragmatic way in solving those challenges, because we've been talking about a topic that is very vast, very wide, but I always like to get back to, okay, what does it mean for me? It can be solved in a 90-day plan. I want to share that perspective as well, because what we're talking about is not a 3 to 5 years out issue that you need to invest a lot of time and resources to solve. With a focused 90-day action plan, let's say starting in month 1, first-party data, what are you going to do there? Second-party data, how you're going to solve the issue and the partnership with key publisher. And then the third-party data, check the integrity and try to phase it out as soon as possible. The issue is already widely solved if you do that. In order to do that, I will share with you at the end of each section a bit of a quick list or a list of key questions to ask yourself or your organization in order to help you get started with that topic. Again, it's just framework for you to find help in getting started with solving that topic of data safety. The second topic that I will pass on rather quickly is the topic of media. Is a separate issue that needs awareness of brands and marketers, because basically everything we just discussed with third-party cookies and data safety then comes to pollute the media industry and media ecosystem. How? One example is what we call the RTB auction mechanism. If your brand is investing in media in digital platform today, programmatically or not, it is likely going through RTB, through real-time bidding. The real-time bidding mechanism has been broken for many years and is still broken today. So now it's basically put under a lot of scrutiny by GDPR for very good reason. Take the example of one user going to one publisher website. Think about a big publisher website in Portugal, and this user give consent to this publisher to use their data. Okay, that's good. Now the issue starts when this publisher is selling inventory for you as brand, as marketer, to place your ads on the publisher website. Because basically what is the industry doing is going through this auction model, the RTB mechanism, that takes this user data, put it in an exchange and opens it, makes it visible to all the bidders entering in the auction, brand A, brand B, brand C, brand D, to bid on that user to receive their ad. Now you got the issue. This user never gave the consent for their data to be sent to the entire internet, to hundreds of brands, ad exchanges, and ad servers. This user gave consent to one publisher website. So this is why fundamentally the RTB mechanism is broken. The programmatic approach of buying media is also broken. And there it's an opportunity. As I was saying in the introduction, Portugal is one of the markets with a lesser share of their digital media spend running through programmatic. I think it's a good thing, because programmatic also opens a lot of data leakage, the same way RTB does. So actually, Portugal is a market with an advantage there, because you're not coming from a legacy of having a lot of money from your digital investment going through programmatic. It is going to be easier, in my opinion, to correct the issue that is related to digital media for the Portuguese market if tackled in a in a systematic manner. And how, I just want to offer a solution again, how to go about solving the issue is thinking about it differently. Most of the industry today is building their targeting plan on the DSP side. I don't want to go into too much technical terms for today, but at a high level, you need to flip the model. Think about how you're going to use your first-party data on the right-hand side of the screen in order to create a closed data ecosystem, work with publisher on your second-party data agreement, and then there is a way actually to do today a point of transaction where you as advertiser can buy a deal ID. This is how we call that at Global Data Bank. That does not get polluted through RTB or programmatic because everything was built on the SSP side, not on the DSP side. I will go back maybe if any follow-up question on that topic that is a bit more technical. Again, a bit of a checklist or a quick list on the topic of active data leakage. Those are 5 questions that you may want to consider to test your organization and your readiness internally, and then figure out how to get started in a very pragmatic manner in order to solve the second challenge of active data leakage. And then the third one is more for awareness, is just the overall industry and why is it broken. So in terms of piggybacking, marketers have asked the industry to come with more and more audiences and more people to reach. So what did the industry do? Is monetize that, created lookalikes and extrapolated models. Those are the models that I was referring to, using third-party data, highly inaccurate, does not go any good for your business. It's simply a waste of your money as marketer. So if you can walk away from those kind of techniques and methodology, your brand will not suffer any impact, and you can actually use your money elsewhere to focus on first-party data and second-party data. The issue of data reselling and data bundling is connected to that. Once you allow the ad tech industry to sell extrapolated audiences, then what it does is it creates more and more for retargeting purposes. And this is what created the broken model we have today, unfortunately, to deal with. So at the end of this section, what you will see is 5 questions, again, to think about this third and last key challenge in the industry and for you as marketers to consider, and where to start. What are the thought starter, the question to ask yourself to test your brand readiness, and then the question to ask internally in order to focusing on the right thing to solve the problem. Finishing with a bit of hope. The question that I open then for the entire group is, what if there was a way to actually use data from consumer in order to reach them with relevant content, messaging, and promotion, which consumer love, and do that through media? First question is that possible? The answer is yes. Second question I'm often getting is that possible today? The answer is also yes. Third question that I'm usually getting from brand is, how much is that going to cost me more? And the answer is nothing. So why I'm saying that is actually what you will realize once you start working on your data safety plan. You will realize that you will clean a lot of the data that was not really doing any good for your brand in the first place. Third-party data, we talk about it. Move it away. Second-party data, you focus your plan with key publisher, you remove the long tail, you make strategic partnership with a handful of them that are really meaningful for your brand. It will minimize your expense and it will maximize the business output for your brand. First-party data is a gold mine. It's a gold mine that does not cost you anything. because it's your data, it's data from your consumer coming to interact with your brand on your website. So it is not meant to cost you anything more. I want to demystify also that, and I'm insisting on this message because nowadays there is a lot of suppliers or players in the industry that are coming to brands telling them, if you want to be compliant now, you're going to have to pay the tax, the compliance that is going to cost you more. The reality, it's not the case, and I would encourage you as brand marketers to challenge that paradigm and to ask the question, if things were done wrong before, why should I pay more to solve them now? The cost of compliance is not more expensive for brand. It is a redistribution of value in the value chain of the marketing industry that should not impact the brands negatively and should rather impact the consumer positively. I want to close with a bit of a summary and where to start with the few minutes ahead of us. So we saw in the first section the three main issues. If you want to really break it down so it becomes an issue that becomes actionable and something to tackle, is the passive data leakage, active data leakage, and then the broken model in the industry. Those are the three main problems. If you frame the problem correctly internally, it gets much easier to go and solve them afterwards. A framework that I'm going to share with Manuela, and potentially she could distribute with some members that are interested, is breaking down the issue then in those pillars that I mentioned earlier on, and thinking about the alternatives and pros and cons. My key message here is there are alternatives that exist today that are not more expensive for brands, and that could be tested immediately. It just requires a mindset shift, openness to test new things and new ways of working. And then a bit of a framework that we offer as Global Data Bank. We created that acronym called SAFE. We like data to be safe. And what it means is basically, if you want to have an action plan internally, it almost looks like a pyramid internally. You need to first evaluate where your brand and your company is at today. Second, formulate a data safety strategy or data privacy strategy. Third is to activate it through your media, test and learn, and then make it live within your organization. So the issue that is at hand and the opportunity is widely understood. Once you get to that, the shield level is where companies, some of them we see get to that level after a couple of months of internal work, where you can basically be at peace because you know you have robust compensation and control internally that really protect your consumer data and make it work within the boundaries of what you're trying to do with your business, whether you sell materials or services. The last piece is just the time scale between now and the future. Those 5 pillars, what I encourage you to do to get started is to then put them on a priority list on a timeline within your organization. The topic of data, digital privacy is important. It's not unique. There are other challenges that your brand or priorities that your organization is working on. So it really needs to be articulated in a clear way with dates and gates, with timelines, with owners, with resources allocated behind in order to see progress on the topic of data privacy. Some of the watch out, I will leave them in the presentation for you to consider. The success for today, again, was just for me to lay the ground on this very wide topic of digital privacy first media future. I hope I was able to convey something new, some actionable insights in the discussion or in the material, and happy to help if any question arises now or as a follow-up that you can direct to Manuela. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Magid. It was for me that that I'm not very used to these challenges, digital challenges. It was very clear. It was you had this this capacity of slice the problem in parts and make it very clear. Thank you really very much, Magid.
You're welcome.
And I will we will allow people to ask questions either by the Q&A or any other or personally, if you want. You just have to announce that you want to ask a question, and you can raise your hand, and we will open to everybody the micro for you to ask the questions. I will start, if you don't mind, Magid, to ask you. You said very well that in Portugal programmatic is not yet a strong way. We don't use very much programmatic. I think it's about 25% of the purchase orders are through programmatic, which is good, as you say. But we are listening in Portugal more and more that agencies are going to the programmatic because the investments are growing. The investments on online advertising are growing. And I'm sure that the panorama will change. So your recommendation is that you take action, that we take action now to avoid most of the problems that you've noticed elsewhere, right?
Indeed, and the topic of programmatic is a very important one. Some markets have gone to, in some part of the world, more than 65% of their digital media running for programmatic, and then it's very hard to take a step back and course correct the privacy intrinsic challenges that comes with programmatic. So knowing that Portugal is below or at par with 25%, it is not such a huge step back to take to probably stop growing the programmatic investment until certain conditions are met. And those conditions are the conditions of data privacy. The programmatic mechanism is just like RTB. It opens the door to data to be shared across many publishers, across different ad exchanges. So before to put more money there and reward bad behavior from a privacy standpoint, I would encourage brands in Portugal to open the discussion with their agency and their publisher and ask, what is the compensation mechanism, the control mechanism that you are going to put in place for me to be comfortable with putting the same amount of money or more money through programmatic going forward, knowing that the programmatic model is highly broken today.
And you said that should be the marketers or the marketing leader should lead these this situation or this complex environment of the digital. So do you really believe that marketing should understand very well these privacy issues and lead all the way his company in order to be compliant? or there are
I wouldn't.
someone else in your organization that should lead that? We know that there are today very high fines on these, as you said, 4% of the turnover is the maximum fine that the European Union is planned. And I know that there are already well-known brands that are facing huge fines. So given the two faces of this coin, one is the fear of having fines, and the other is to have consumer trust in the brand, even though you believe that is in the marketing that this issue should be.
I do, and I give you a two-step answer. The first one is I'm absolutely convinced about the brand opportunity to be a force for good, and driving privacy in the marketing practices is definitely a great way to do that. Just like driving a sustainability agenda and a responsible marketing agenda is. So that's just as background. The second thing is data is so important nowadays because consumers are spending more and more time online behind the screen, and this is where you are going to build your brand and to interact with them. That I would urge the marketers to think about that as a brand building activity. It's not something you need to do on the side to think about consumer privacy, and so it's something that is crucial for your brand existence. So think about it as what you're already doing. Just give it an extra layer in terms of investing in yourself, investing in understanding the issue, and being able, what I mean by the marketer needs to lead is not they need to do everything themselves, but they need to be knowledgeable enough to ask the right question and to drive the right level of accountability internally across functions. Have an informed decision with your lawyers that will look at it from a regulatory standpoint. Have an informed discussion with your market research team that will look at it through the lenses of measurement, and have an informed question with your CFO that will look at it from a financial risk standpoint. Once you're able to orchestrate this internal agenda, you're also able to orchestrate the external conversation with your publisher, with your agency, and with your ad tech partners.
Okay, yeah, because probably there are advertisers that think that as are the agencies that manage all their digital activity, they should leave those issues to the agencies to solve too, but it's not the case, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay, so is there someone that would like to ask a question to Magid? Nobody's raising the hand, so Magid, thank you very much for taking your holidays time to be with us, and
thank you.
Really
Thank you for inviting me.
Appreciate this presentation, and I'm sure that this issue is much more clear for everybody here, and I'm sure that some actions will be taken after this. And
happy to help. And
if there any questions that people want to ask you, can I give them your email address for them to
absolutely. This is where I was going. I'm really grateful for the invite to them, Manuela, again, and I'm here to help. It's an issue that is gonna be with us as the marketing community for the years to come. My call to action is start earlier, sooner than later. And to do so, you can count on our help if any follow-up questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Magid. And have nice holidays there in Toronto.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Magid. Thank you.